The palace courtyard was calm in the afternoon light. The stone ground looked clean and cold. Tourists stood behind the barrier holding phones and whispering softly. Guards stood in a straight line without moving. Their uniforms were neat and heavy. Their faces showed no feeling at all. Leo stood near the main gate. He was tall and strong but quiet in nature. His eyes stayed forward. His hands stayed still. He had trained for years to reach this position. He knew every rule by heart. He knew when to move and when not to move. Leo was not born into power or comfort. He came from a small town far from the palace walls. His father worked long hours and spoke little. His father taught him that respect came from discipline, not pride. Leo remembered those lessons every day. Standing guard was not easy. Hours passed slowly. The uniform felt heavier as time went on. Still Leo never shifted his weight. He never blinked more than necessary. He believed the uniform stood for something bigger than himself. A black car entered the courtyard slowly. The sound of tires echoed softly. Tourists noticed at once. Phones were raised higher. Whispers grew louder. Everyone knew someone important had arrived. The car stopped near the guards. An aide opened the door. Queen Camilla stepped out calmly. She looked around the courtyard as if measuring everything with her eyes. Her presence changed the air. People straightened without realizing it. She walked forward with confidence. Her shoes clicked against the stone ground. The aide stayed close beside her. She noticed the guards standing perfectly still. Her eyes stopped on Leo. Leo remained motionless. Some tourists exchanged nervous looks. One woman lowered her phone. A man whispered that something felt strange. They expected a salute. Queen Camilla paused and waited. Nothing happened. Her expression changed slightly. She took a step closer to Leo. Her voice cut through the quiet space. She asked why he had not saluted. The words echoed in the courtyard. Every person felt the tension rise. The guards beside Leo stayed still. No one moved. Leo did not answer. He did not answer because he could not. He was on ceremonial duty. He was not allowed to respond unless commanded by a superior officer. Breaking that rule would mean breaking his oath. Queen Camilla waited for a response. None came. The silence felt heavy. Tourists held their breath. The aide leaned toward the queen and whispered something urgently. She raised her hand to stop him. She spoke again with a sharper tone. She said she was speaking to him. Leo did not move. Inside his chest his heart beat steady. He was not angry. He was not afraid. He felt calm. His training guided him. His father's lessons guided him. The queen straightened her shoulders. Her face showed clear displeasure. She said his behavior was unacceptable. Still Leo remained still. People began to murmur. Some thought the guard was being disrespectful. Others felt uneasy but did not know why. No one understood what was really happening. Leo remembered his first day of training. The instructor told them that silence could be louder than words. The uniform was not a costume. It was a promise. Queen Camilla stepped closer again. She looked directly at his face. She waited for movement. Leo did not blink. The crowd felt frozen. Cameras stayed raised but no one spoke. This moment was not about pride. It was about duty. It was about rules that could not bend for comfort. The aide looked nervous. He whispered again but the queen ignored him. She turned slightly toward the watching crowd as if expecting support. None came. The silence stretched longer. It began to feel uncomfortable. What had started as authority now felt like challenge. Leo stood firm. He knew the truth would come out soon. He trusted the system he served. He trusted that discipline would protect him. What no one realized was that someone important was watching from a nearby entrance. Someone who knew the rules better than anyone in the courtyard. And when that person stepped forward, the story would change completely. The silence in the courtyard grew heavier with every passing second. People shifted slightly behind the barrier, but no one spoke. Phones remained raised yet forgotten. Eyes stayed locked on the guard who refused to move. Queen Camilla took another step forward. Her patience was thinning. Her posture stayed straight, but tension showed in her face. She was not used to being ignored. Leo remained still. His vision stayed forward. He focused on a point far ahead. He controlled his breathing the way he was taught. Each breath reminded him why he stood there. The aide beside the queen leaned closer again. His voice was low but urgent. He tried to explain something. She brushed him off with a sharp movement of her hand. She spoke again and said that guards existed to show respect. Her voice carried across the courtyard. Tourists heard every word. Some nodded. Others looked confused. Leo did not react. The guards beside him stayed motionless as well. They knew the rules. They knew exactly why Leo could not move. Their silence was their support. A man in the crowd whispered that something was wrong. A woman replied that the guard looked calm, not rude. The confusion spread quietly. From a stone archway nearby, a senior officer watched the scene unfold. His name was Mark. His uniform showed years of service. His eyes narrowed as he understood what was happening. Mark knew Leo. He knew his record. He knew his discipline. He also knew the exact rules of ceremonial duty. He waited one more moment. Queen Camilla crossed her arms. Her expression hardened. She said the situation would be reported. Her words sounded firm but carried uncertainty. That was when Mark stepped forward. His boots struck the stone with authority. The sound turned every head. Tourists gasped softly. Cameras shifted toward him. Mark stopped several steps away from the queen. He saluted properly. His movement was sharp and precise. He addressed her respectfully. His voice was calm and steady. He explained that the guard was on ceremonial watch. He explained that the guard could not salute unless formally commanded through protocol. The courtyard fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different. Queen Camilla turned toward him. Surprise crossed her face. She listened closely. Mark continued. He explained that personal requests could not override duty. He said the guard was doing exactly what he was trained to do. The words landed heavily. The aide lowered his head slightly. Tourists exchanged looks. A few nodded in understanding. Queen Camilla stood still. Her expression shifted. What began as authority now met public clarity. She realized that the crowd had heard everything. She glanced at Leo again. Leo remained still. Mark finished speaking. He saluted once more and stepped back. The truth now stood plainly in the open. The queen cleared her throat. She adjusted her posture. Her voice softened slightly as she acknowledged the explanation. She said nothing further to Leo. The moment stretched, but the tension slowly faded. People behind the barrier relaxed their shoulders. Phones lowered. Queen Camilla turned away and spoke quietly to her aide. They moved toward the car. As she walked away, her earlier confidence felt changed. The crowd had seen what happened. The authority she expected had been quietly corrected. Leo stayed motionless until the car doors closed and the vehicle drove away. Only then did Mark return to Leo. He stood beside him for a brief moment. He spoke quietly so only Leo could hear. He told him he did well. He told him discipline mattered. He told him that silence could protect honor. Leo felt pride rise inside, but his face stayed calm. The courtyard returned to normal slowly. Tourists resumed talking. Guards remained in position. Leo stood exactly as before. Inside him something had changed. He understood that respect was not demanded. It was earned through restraint. What the queen had expected was a gesture. What she received was a lesson in duty. And the story was far from over. The news of the courtyard moment did not stay inside the palace walls. By evening whispers had already spread through nearby streets. People talked quietly in cafes and shops. Phones showed short clips recorded by tourists. The scene replayed again and again. Leo did not know any of this yet. He finished his duty as usual. His shift ended without ceremony. He walked through the narrow corridor toward the changing room. The stone walls echoed softly with each step. He removed his uniform carefully. He folded it with respect. To him, it was not clothing. It was a symbol of trust. He placed it neatly in his locker. Outside the palace the air felt different. Cooler and lighter. Leo walked toward the bus stop like any ordinary man. No one recognized him yet. He liked it that way. At home he lived alone in a small flat. The furniture was simple. The rooms were quiet. He heated a small meal and sat by the window. He watched the city lights flicker on. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Mark. Mark told him to rest. Mark told him to be ready tomorrow. Mark said there would be questions. Leo read the message twice. He understood what it meant. He felt calm. The next morning the palace felt different. Guards whispered quietly among themselves. Officers moved faster than usual. The atmosphere was alert. Leo took his position again. His posture stayed perfect. His face stayed neutral. Later that day Mark called him into a private office. The room was modest and formal. A flag stood in the corner. Papers rested neatly on the desk. Mark spoke clearly. He said the incident had reached higher authorities. He said some people were unhappy. He also said many supported Leo. Leo listened without speaking. Mark explained that rules protected everyone. He said bending them once would weaken the whole system. He said Leo had upheld the standard. Leo nodded. Meanwhile, outside the palace reporters gathered. They asked questions loudly. Cameras pointed toward the gates. Guards kept order. Inside another meeting took place. Officials discussed protocol. They reviewed footage. They listened to witnesses. The truth was clear. Leo had followed every rule. The conversation shifted. It was no longer about a salute. It was about respect and limits. It was about duty versus expectation. Later that afternoon Leo returned to the courtyard. Tourists recognized him now. Some whispered his name. Some nodded with quiet respect. He ignored it all. A young boy in the crowd watched him closely. The boy tugged at his mother's sleeve. He asked why the guard never moved. The mother answered softly. She said because some jobs require strength that cannot be seen. Leo heard nothing. But the moment mattered. As the sun lowered, the palace shadows grew longer. The courtyard glowed softly. The crowd thinned. Mark approached again near the end of the shift. He told Leo there would be a formal review. He told him to stay steady. Leo stayed steady. That night news channels discussed the incident carefully. Commentators spoke about tradition. Others spoke about modern expectations. Many spoke about discipline. Leo did not watch. He prepared his uniform for the next day. He cleaned every detail. He pressed every fold. He remembered his father again. He remembered the quiet lessons. He remembered the strength of restraint. The next morning the palace announced a statement. It confirmed that the guard had acted correctly. It reminded the public of ceremonial rules. The message was calm and firm. Crowds reacted quickly. Support grew. Messages flooded online praising discipline and professionalism. Leo returned to duty as usual. But something new happened. As Queen Camilla arrived again days later, she paused near the courtyard entrance. The crowd was watching closely. This time she did not speak to Leo. She observed quietly. Mark stood nearby. At the proper moment, Mark issued a formal command. Leo saluted sharply and correctly. The movement was perfect. The crowd exhaled. Queen Camilla nodded slightly and moved on. No words were exchanged. The moment passed, but its meaning stayed. Leo returned to stillness. What had once been tension now became understanding. The lesson had been absorbed by all sides. And yet Leo knew his story was not finished. Because sometimes standing still changes more than moving ever could. The final days after the incident felt quieter but heavier with meaning. The palace returned to its routine, but something unseen had shifted. Guards moved with the same discipline yet carried a deeper awareness. Visitors behaved with more caution and respect. Leo continued his duties without change. He arrived on time. He dressed with care. He stood where he was assigned. He followed every rule exactly as before. What had changed was how people looked at him. Some tourists recognized his face. Some whispered his name. Some nodded gently. None of it distracted him. Inside, the palace officials finalized their review. Documents were signed. Protocol was reinforced. Training materials were updated to include the incident as a lesson. Mark met with Leo one final time. He thanked him for his professionalism. He told him that not every act of service was loud. He said history often remembered quiet moments longer. Leo listened respectfully. He felt no pride. He felt purpose. One afternoon, a group of young trainees visited the courtyard. They stood behind the barrier listening to an instructor explain discipline. The instructor pointed to Leo. He said that duty was not about power. He said it was about restraint. The trainees watched closely. They saw a man standing still. They saw strength without movement. Leo remained focused ahead. Later that evening, Leo returned home again. He cooked a simple meal. He sat by the window. He watched the city lights flicker. He thought about how one moment could reveal many truths. He thought about how silence could speak louder than words. The next week, the palace hosted a formal ceremony. Guests arrived from many places. The courtyard filled again. Leo took his place. Queen Camilla arrived with her aides. This time there was no tension. There was understanding. She paused briefly near Leo. She did not ask for a salute. She did not speak. At the proper command, Leo saluted cleanly. The moment was brief. It was correct. It was complete. The ceremony continued smoothly. Applause followed later inside the hall. Afterward, Mark approached Leo once more. He told him his service record would reflect excellence. He told him opportunities would come. Leo thanked him quietly. Weeks passed. The story slowly faded from public talk. New topics took its place. Life moved forward. But within the palace the lesson stayed. Leo trained younger guards in the evenings. He taught them posture. He taught them patience. He taught them why rules existed. He never spoke about himself. He spoke about duty. One day the young boy from the crowd returned with his school group. He recognized Leo again. He smiled proudly. Leo did not see the smile. But it mattered. Time continued its steady pace. Leo advanced slowly in his career. He remained respected. He remained grounded. He never chased recognition. He never spoke about the moment unless asked. When asked, he said only one thing. He said discipline protected everyone. Years later, another guard would stand in another courtyard facing another challenge. The rules would guide them. The lesson would remain. Because true strength often looks like stillness. Because respect is earned through consistency. Because honor does not demand attention. Leo stood as he always had. Silent. Steady. Unshaken. The palace gates closed softly behind another day. And the story ended not with humiliation but with understanding.